Not even her dog. It's my dog! She's taking my dog!
Russell Johnson was born on November 10, 1924, as the eldest of 7. Tragically, his father and one brother died within a month of each other from pneumonia. This was one of the reasons why he attended Girard College as a teenager, as it was a school specifically for boys without fathers. Not long after he graduated from high school, Johnson enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Corps to become an aviation cadet. He attended training in Santa Ana, California, and received his commission as a second lieutenant on January 15, 1944. He was subsequently sent to serve in the Pacific Theater as a bombardier aboard an American bomber. Johnson flew with the 100th Bombardment Squadron, 13th Air Force, and was shot down on his 44th and final mission over Zamboanga in the Philippines on March 4, 1945. The pilot was forced to ditch in the water after the aircraft was hit by ground fire. The bombing runs were at minimum altitude, right on the water, and they skipped the bombs to the target. The pilot was responsible for releasing, so when they got over a target, Johnson would climb over the bomb bay and get on one of the 50 caliber waist guns. The shell had killed the radio operator and broke Johnson's ankles. The pilot was then forced to ditch, which was extremely hazardous, as a crash landing on water is like hitting a brick wall at 100 miles an hour. Meanwhile, the Army Air Sea Rescue, which flew Navy Catalina flying boats, would circle at coordinates about 100 miles away from wherever the strike was taking place. The group sent a mayday on the radio, which was picked up, but as the Catalinas only made around 90 knots an hour, it took them more than an hour to arrive. The men were floating around in 6-man life rafts when finally the rescue plane arrived. He picked up the crew, along with those of 2 other downed B25's, and delivered them back to base some 600 miles away. It was a long trip for Johnson, who had been wounded. The following is the recollections of the pilot who performed the rescue of the B-25 crews. First Lieutenant Frank Rauschkolb embarked on a mission at 5:15 a.m. in his Catalina search plane, heading out from Morotai to provide cover for a B-25 strike on Zamboanga. By 9:30 a.m., he had reached Malanipa Island, his designated rendezvous point. Almost immediately upon arriving, he picked up a distress radio transmission indicating that several B-25's had been shot down near the target. Maydays filled the air as directions were relayed to the stranded crew members. Determined to help, Lieutenant Rauschkolb headed to the reported location and spotted a crew struggling in the water roughly a mile off the shore. As he circled to prepare for a landing near the raft, he noticed several Japanese barges opening fire on him. He urgently requested the B-25's overhead to strafe the barges, providing cover as he carried out his rescue. Despite facing a barrage of machine gun and mortar fire, he landed and navigated his aircraft toward the raft successfully, bringing 5 crew members, including Johnson, aboard, while sadly, the 6th had perished when the plane went down. Fortunately, none of the survivors were severely wounded. The Catalina then taxied toward another crew, stranded on a reef just 500 yards offshore. As Lieutenant Rauschkolb approached, enemy shore batteries began firing at his plane, but he bravely pressed on and managed to pull 6 more survivors on board. During the taxiing maneuver, one of the engines overheated and was shut down for a tense 15 minutes. He guided the aircraft through the coral reef and into the open sea in an attempt to escape enemy fire. However, the rough waters made takeoff impossible, prompting Lieutenant Rauschkolb to embark on a 15-mile taxi journey to reach another crew down near the southern tip of Zamboanga Peninsula. With the help of 2 guiding B-25's, the rescue plane navigated to the 3rd crew. Meanwhile, water was seeping into the aircraft through flare tubes in the tunnel hatch, causing the rear compartment to flood. The crew members and survivors vigorously bailed water to combat the rising tide. At 11:30 a.m., the 3rd crew was sighted and successfully brought aboard. However, with the aircraft overloaded, Lieutenant Rauschkolb made the critical decision to jettison 400 gallons of fuel before commencing takeoff with 25 individuals on board and a dangerously leaking hull. At 11:40, they were finally airborne and headed for home, while the circling B-25's dipped their wings in salute as they too returned safely. By 4:45 p.m., the Catalina touched down at Morotai, and the survivors were swiftly transferred to the 155th Station Hospital. The survival of 17 out of 18 crew members stands as a testament to the rigorous training of the B-25 crews in ditching procedures. The lone crew member lost had initially left the ship unscathed, but tragically vanished beneath the waves, presumably struck by enemy fire while in the water. Lieutenant Rauschkolb exemplified extraordinary courage and skill during the harrowing operation, upholding the finest traditions of the rescue service. The survivors recounted their low-level bombing and strafing mission over Zamboanga and nearby military targets, noting that while they had previously faced minimal anti-aircraft fire, this time it was relentless and deadly, leading to the loss of 3 planes and damaging several others. Lieutenant Frank Rauschkolb was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross for this mission, dated July 11, 1945. The remainder of the crew were awarded Silver Stars. The citation reads in part, "For gallantry in action off Zamboanga, Mindanao, Philippine Islands, on March 4, 1945. These officers and enlisted men were members of the crew of a Catalina aircraft, which landed near the enemy's gunline shore to pick up the crew of a bomber, which had been forced down at sea. Sighting the survivors on a raft in the vicinity of 5 enemy barges, armed with 20mm and 50 caliber guns, this crew calmly carried out the rescue while strafing bombers held off the hostile vessels. Then, learning that another bomber had crashed 500 yards offshore, they taxied to the position and, under intense fire, took the crew aboard. Although their plane was being flooded through leaks caused by enemy hits, they taxied toward a third crew, which had been forced down, and rescued them. By this time, the afterhatches were flooded with 2 feet of water, and it became necessary to jettison all of the ammunition and over 400 gallons of gasoline. After 3 attempts, they succeeded in taking off and brought their damaged and overloaded plane safely back to base. Russell Johnson was awarded a Purple Heart for his wounds. He was also awarded the Air Medal, the Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal with 3 campaign stars, the Philippine Liberation Ribbon with 1 campaign star, and the World War II Victory Medal. After his honorable discharge from the military in November 1945, Johnson used the GI Bill to pay for his acting studies at the Actors Lab in Hollywood. He went on to star in countless films and series. However, his most memorable role was in the television classic Gilligan's Island, where he played the Professor. Although the series only aired from 1964 to 1967, it remained one of the most popular shows on television up until the late 1980s and is still shown in reruns today. There were also 3 made-for-television movies in the late 70s and early 80s. Russell Johnson died from kidney failure at his home in Bainbridge Island, Washington, on January 16, 2014, aged 89. Thanks for watching. If you have a thought on Russell Johnson, drop a comment below. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like.